Welcome to Win with Richardson and Richardson. What's important now? Success in business most often comes down to hard work, not by silver bullets and quick fixes. It's knowing where to focus that hard work that's key to winning. Join sales prospecting expert and 3-time seven-figure business founder Carrie Richardson and managing partner of R&R Consulting and former owner of Doberman Technologies, Ian Richardson, for radical honesty regarding strategic planning, accountability, and execution that will get you the systematic results you're working toward. Let's get into today's episode. Thought leader and your host, Carrie Richardson.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carrie Richardson. I am your host today for Win What's Important Now. With me today is Michael Nelson, who's the founder of Scale, the staff augmentation firm. Michael and I met, I want to say 12 years ago at an IT Nation event.
Yep.
Way back in the day. We're dating ourselves a little bit. I wanted to talk to Michael today about a couple of things. So Michael's career did not start as an entrepreneur. Michael, what was your role in the world before you decided to start a business?
In my first life, I was a school teacher. I taught middle school in an inter-district, really tough school, taught language arts and history. And then I ended up getting the computer lab full-time in 1993, I believe.
93.
That's what started. It was back with the old Apple, the Macs, and it was a token ring network. I'm definitely dating myself. It's before we ever before the internet even existed. And about a year and a half into having the lab, the first browser came out and the internet came out. I think we had a dial up and we started doing things in the computer lab on the internet.
It's taken us all back a little ways now. So you went from teaching computers to owning a business that focused on computers. Tell us about your journey into entrepreneurship. So how did you decide to start a managed IT services company?
So it actually started before that. I built a website for the school, and a friend of my dad's who had a business asked me to build one for his company. So the cheapest man I'd ever met. And when I told him how much, he said, "No, that's not enough. I'm going to give you more." And I thought there might be something here. So I actually started a business on the side doing web design. That was in 95, thinking that I'd teach full-time for a year, then I could drop down to half-time for a year. And then after 2 years, I might be able to full-time make a go of a business. As it turns out, I dropped down to half-time within 3 months, had 2 employees and another 2 months after that, and had to quit outright and built the web design firm up. That was 95. That exploded with the whole .com. Everything was exploding back then. Did that for 5.5 years until the .bomb hit, which that's where I learned a lot of my lessons about how to be a true entrepreneur, good and bad.
The resilience buzzword comes in there, I think.
There's so many of the books that we've all read that most strong entrepreneurs have gone bankrupt at least once. I learned a lot of things. I was young. I was, late 20s when I started that business. I made a lot of mistakes.
You paid some entrepreneur tuition there.
Yes, I did. Painful as it was, but I put that tuition to good use.
All right. So it's 1995. You started a web design firm and the .com bubble bursts. And so naturally you think it's time for me to start another business. And then what happened?
I wish I had been that brave. I actually went back to teaching for a year and licked my wounds until a business friend took me out and said, "What are you going to do next?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to stay a teacher." "No, you're not. You can't do that." And by the end of dinner, it was like, "Okay, what could you do?" The only thing I really knew how to do was computers. So scratched out a little business plan on the back of a napkin, like we all do, and set up a computer support. Back then, this was 2004. So back then, the term MSP didn't even exist. So I started doing computer repair for anybody and everybody. We did small businesses, home offices, teachers. We had a lot of what were called MNOLs, Michael's Nice Old Ladies. because I was really patient. And they would tell their friends, oh, there's this great computer guy and he doesn't make you feel stupid. So grew that up. After a few years, had half a dozen employees. We were still doing anybody and everybody. And it was just becoming a nightmare. I think we looked up and had 400 different companies or people we had touched in a year. And the problem is, and this was one of the lessons that I brought forward, is the old 80-20 rule. And so we went and looked at all of the business, all of the income, listed out everybody, and it turns out 80% of our income was coming from 20% of our clients. And the problem is we were being distracted by those smaller companies because it was always an emergency for them. So in one fell swoop, we actually migrated out 80% of our business in 1 week. Found them new homes, gave them people to work with, and then fully concentrated on doing only businesses, supporting businesses.
Changed your client roster. Imagine you changed your shorts at that point too, dropping 80% of your business.
That was one of the scariest things I ever did, and it paid dividends almost immediately. It was such a huge difference.
And how long did you fight the idea before you did? I know there was a point at Managed Sales Pros where we had to fire our largest client. They were 60% of our revenue. So important lesson there. Don't put all your eggs in one whale basket. But we had finally done per client profitability and realized that we were actually paying them for the privilege of being there. It was terrifying. And they went to a competitor. And 6 months later, they came back and paid our new rates. So happy ending, but you got to take that leap.
Absolutely. And you hit on two very important things besides the leap, is that it's one of the things that I loved about the peer group that I was in for my MSP is be very careful about double-digit clients. And you're going to get them, but make sure you sell your way down out of it. That was also a valuable lesson. But yeah, basically I did the same thing as you. We looked at our effective bill rate, their PITA factor, the whole thing, put them into the 4 different categories: home user, small office, home office. By this point, we had already had basic MSP kind of clients that it wasn't that in the day, but it was consistent income from them. So we knew how much we were going to get fairly close on a month-to-month basis. So we had that income there, and that was enough to keep us going and keep the doors open. I had to take the chance that I might be really poor for a little while, but I wasn't worried about being able to pay rent or pay the staff. So that gave me a little bit of comfort and made it easier to take that leap, because it was a huge leap to fire 80% of your clients. That's insane.
I know.
Worked out well.
Well, I mean, you also took a pretty big leap recently. I understand that you are wearing the coveted owner role at your organization now versus owner operator. Tell us about that evolution.
The MSP is now 20 years old this year, and a little over a year ago, I completely retired out of the company. That today, I haven't spoken to a client in over a year, and today I only meet with the president who's running the company on a day-to-day, and it's really about the finances.
Yeah, I understand that you and your ops manager didn't see eye to eye on a pretty important topic, which leads us to our next discussion. You were very against the idea of remote work.
Absolutely. I owned the building. I bought the first building when the company was, I think, 4 years old, and I had always owned the buildings that we were in. So I thought that it was absolutely a requirement that everybody be in the office, that if people worked remotely, they would mess around, they wouldn't work as hard, and that it would be nearly impossible to maintain the culture. Culture was super important in our company. And also having just those serendipity moments where when you're together, you hear things or see things. So I was really afraid of losing that. So staff had been after me for years to work remote. And back starting in 2014, 15, it would have been doable, but I was absolutely against it. Fast forward to the progression of me getting out of the company. I had a guy that had started as a tech, became the technical director, and then he became the operations manager in 2019. And he, shortly after the full acceptance of the job, he came to me and said, "Do I have hiring and firing ability?" Yeah, of course you do. "Do you have veto?" "No, I do not." And he said, "Good, I'm going to be firing this employee and I'm going to be hiring two people from South Africa." My job out dropped, but I had empowered him to be the operations manager, and there was no way I was going to tell him no, especially not that early. It's okay. He's got to learn the hard way. He's going to fail, going to fall flat on his face, and he'll learn from it. And boy, did I get the lesson. These guys were phenomenal. They just worked their tails off. Fast forward, we hired a few more. They were always on the top of the leaderboard. And the irony is, by the time COVID hit, and we're in California, so obviously we were one of the first ones to go home, we were already really well prepared to be able to handle that. So immediately we turned into a fully remote workforce. And with the exception of a couple of guys that set up machines in the office, even after COVID, we've remained 100% remote.
And that led you to business number 4.
The irony of that is the guy who was completely and absolutely against all work from home ended up starting a company that provides techs to other MSPs all over the US and California, US and Canada. The irony is not lost on me for that one.
Now, the company is called Scaled, and one of the things that we talked about before the podcast was that there is a misperception in the market between the terms outsourcing and augmenting. So, what is the difference between augmenting your staff versus outsourcing your staff?
So there's a lot of companies that do outsourcing, and I'm friends with several owners that of companies like that do it well. Outsourcing is when they don't work full time for your company. So you can outsource your help desk. You have good documentation. Calls come in, they go to the outsourced help desk. But you're not in control of who is going to be picking up the phone. You're not in control of who's going to be servicing the tickets. And it's typically a pod of people is how most companies set it up. Where staff augmentation, you are getting a full-time tech placed dedicated to your company that is working in your system at your discretion, learning your ways, your culture, and doing it how you want them to do it.
So, how does that work? For example, if my guy doesn't show up for work today, do I have a spare?
And so there are pros and cons to both, very much with the fact that they are placed full time as staff augmentation. They're very much like any other employee. They're going to call in sick on some days, they have vacation days that they get to take. The good news is their work ethic and their skills really make it an incredible option for companies. We really like the work ethic of the South Africans that we hire. So it's really not any different, Carrie, from having a full-time employee that calls out sick or goes on vacation or has an accident on the way into the office. People are human. They're going to have life problems from time to time.
So, is Scaled more like a PEO firm? Are you responsible for running payroll, or does the company that takes on the augmented employee have
No,
that?
yeah, we are the employer. They are our legal employee. We pay them, we take care of the taxes. We become a partner with the businesses that we work with, and we become their HR partner. So if there's any issues, we deal with that. We help, we coach. We truly become an extension of your companies, the same way that tech support companies are an extension of their clients. They happen to be their partners that help with the IT. We're their partners that help with the HR.
Okay. So, if somebody is going to start exploring staff augmentation for their IT business, what should they be looking for? What questions should they ask their potential provider to find out whether or not this is going to be a good relationship?
Several. One of the first questions is, tell me about the relationship. How does it look ongoing? There's a lot of companies out there that will do one and done. They place them in the company and then they're done. We wanted to build it for MSPs, by MSPs, and really have that ethos that It's not just a one and done kind of thing. You're there to truly be a partner. How do they check in with you? How often do they check in with you? How do they support you? How do they check in and support the employee? That's going to be really important. Do they do coaching? Do they do training? And this is really important because a lot of companies get this wrong, is what is the legal employment status of those employees? Are they legally employed? Are they being paid in their local currency? Are taxes being paid? Do they get to have vacation and sick time like other companies do? We source out of South Africa. There's other companies that are doing it out of Mexico, out of the Philippines, out of India. Some of them are doing it the right way where they're actually the legal employer. There's others that are effectively brokering them and they're independent contractors. And if you've got an independent contractor where you're telling them what time to work, how to work, what tool set to use, and directing their day, they're not an independent contractor. They're an employee, and you've got legal classification issues at that point.
For those of you listening who don't know how to tell whether or not you are going to be legally on the hook for somebody's ridiculous unemployment insurance claim when you hired them as a 1099, go Google IRS 20 questions. And if you can
Yeah,
answer those 20 questions, you've got a contractor. And if you can't, you have an employee and you should expect there to be fallout.
absolutely.
I am not a lawyer.
Nor am I. I do know in this industry, I do know there's people that do it right, and then there's others that aren't doing it the way that it should be done. We want our employees to take vacation. We want our employees to be able to have sick time. Life happens. They need to be able to have a well-balanced life. And that's one of the reasons that we started looking around for a company doing it the right way. Couldn't find anybody. And that was the genesis of how this started. I went out and was trying to find people doing it the right way. I was also in a peer group where everybody was complaining that they couldn't find any good techs. COVID really messed up the tech industry for pay scales and being able to find good staff. And I had actually started getting the foot out the door and had taken a month off, scheduled a month off to feel out what retirement would look like for me, and ended up starting this business with my partner that month.
So good at
Uh,
retiring, Michael. So good at
yeah,
it.
I figured out that, yeah, never going to retire. I'm just going to be a serial entrepreneur.
I'm
It's
convinced
fun.
you're a vampire anyway. You haven't aged in 10 years.
I like
When
you,
you were, I
Carrie.
was doing the math on the numbers here and I was like, no, no, he couldn't
Yeah,
be.
I
Oh,
am
but he
actually
must be.
approaching retirement age.
You would never know it. So, what do you see in the market right now? What trends are pointing towards the success of scaled?
Ironically, it's COVID that really made the biggest difference. And it was for me as well. Once everybody went home, it made everybody had to figure out how to work remotely. Not just us. Every MSP had to do it, but not just us. But in my MSP business, the law firms, the accounting firms, unless they were actually manufacturing somebody, everybody went home and they had to figure out how to run their businesses remotely. The ability to have acceptance of remote employees just changed drastically. In my MSP, we've got 31 employees now, and 11 of them are overseas. Early on, when the first couple of people we had hired from South Africa, I had clients who were, "You're outsourcing?" And said, "No, we're not outsourcing." And I explained the difference to them, said, "No, they're full-time dedicated to us. Instead of driving to the office, they're logging in from South Africa." Very few people had problems with it. We had a couple of really conservative clients that were a little on the xenophobic and said, "I can't believe you're not hiring an American." And it was a really simple response. And it was, "Joe, do you have any open positions in your company?" "Yeah, I can't fill them." "Why not?" Nobody, yeah, and the same problems that all of
Yeah.
us were facing. And when you called to get tech support from the company, "Do you have any problems with our response time?" "No, you guys are great, like you've always been." Yeah, there's a reason for that. I couldn't find the people that we needed here, and so we had to look elsewhere. We found some really amazing resources. "Are the guys taking care of you?" "Oh yeah, they're awesome, but I still," and that was really I only had to do that for a few times with a few clients, and I get it. And if I could find them in America first, yeah. but we weren't able to do that.
I think that there is a misconception that outsourcing or augmenting is going to be far more cost effective than hiring locally. And I would think that in some markets that is probably true, but it has not been my experience that people outsource or augment for the cost savings. What are they looking for when they're going to an organization like yours? It's not going to save them money. What is it going to do for them?
So the one I hear more than anything is the time involved. We have really awesome techs, and they are at a slightly lower cost than you would pay in the US, but that's not why people come to us. They come because we've got a bench of really qualified, really hardworking people that are available. And all of us have placed that Indeed ad, had to go through 500 resumes. You narrow it down to 100, then you narrow it down further. You make 20 phone calls, you get 10 people to talk to you. Out of those 10, you narrow it down to 3 interviews. You schedule the 3 interviews. One is a no-show. You interview 2 people. You make the job offer to one, and they use it to leverage a pay raise from their current employer. We've all gone through that hell.
I'm just
And
going to cut that part of the podcast out and play it on a continuous loop next time somebody asks me why they should outsource.
yeah, we've all gone through that time and time again. It just takes so long, and it's trying to find that needle in the haystack. We've solved that. We do all of that heavy lifting, and we go through a lot of resumes to get down to somebody that we're going to present. The other thing is not only are they ready, but they have a work ethic that is just absolutely incredible. So people come to us for their first one, kind of saying, okay, I'll test this. Then they find out how incredible it can be. We get people coming back time and time again. The other thing that's happened, and this has been very interesting, is the last several years, because it's been so hard to find people, MSPs and other businesses as well have felt like the employees had the advantage and they were afraid to discipline too hard, or maybe to hold somebody to account, or something along those lines, because they were afraid that they would lose the employee and then it would be too hard to replace them. This gives people the ability to not have to be afraid if somebody leaves. And that's really liberating for a lot of companies.
How do you manage so many different sets of processes and documentation?
Remember the years of failure? Uh,
Oh, do I? Do I?
luckily, I got to say, my MSP was doing well and it was growing. When the man who is now running the company took over as ops manager, my company just thrived. And it was because he was fanatical about creating processes and enforcing they be followed. I'm a really good visionary. Implementer wasn't my strong suit. So I found somebody that did. Luckily, in this company, we've got visionaries and we've got implementers. So we've got our departments, we've got our client success team, we've got our employee success team, we've got our sales team, we've got the HR, we've got the finance. So early on, we decided we were going to build this the right way and document it and follow the processes.
What I was thinking was every MSP that you support must have their own processes and documentation. Do you standardize those for them when they partner with you, or is each employee expected to follow a different set of documentation and processes? Not your
So,
internal hires,
yeah,
but your
sorry. So
augments.
each employee that we place is full-time at that company. So they're going to work using their tools, their directions, their SOPs. Every MSP does it differently. They all have their own way. Everybody uses a remote connection tool. They use a ticketing system. But we want our employee placed in there to work the way that they do it. So where we're coaching people is during the onboarding, we help our clients understand how best to be successful with a remote employee. There's tips and tricks you can do just to make sure that they come into the culture really well. The
Mhm.
one thing that we do insist on, and we can help the client do this, but that's create a 30, 60, 90-day success plan. And that is clearly spelled out, what does this employee need to do in the first 30, 60, 90 days to be successful in your organization? What do they need to learn? What skills do they need to do? Where do they need to be ticketing wise? How do they be? All of these things that help them understand, if you do this, you will be successful in our company. It's been a little surprising how well received, not surprising. It's been incredibly well received. And we've had some people are like, oh, I need to start doing this with the Americans too.
I
Yeah,
was just thinking this is
yeah,
like hiring 101. Write your
it is.
job description out. Make sure all your processes are documented. Do you understand them? Can you train to them? Have they been updated in the last 5 years?
Absolutely. But Carrie, when I started my MSP, I was a kid flying by the seat of my pants. The urgent always overtakes the important. We grow businesses. A lot of us started off as techs and the accidental entrepreneur, as it were.
They didn't
There's
make
still
us take a
yeah,
test or anything.
I know,
It's like,
huh?
hey, you
It's
own a
almost like
business
having
now.
kids.
Here's your
Wow,
tax number. Good luck.
there's not a test to have kids. You have to learn as you go. Yeah, exactly. So
Oh,
those are the kind of things that also a good partner with doing staff augmentation is going to help, is to make sure that you have the best chance at success with bringing this person into your organization.
there you have it, everybody. You've got some options for outsourcing or augmenting when you're having talent challenges. But I think some of this advice could be applied easily within any organization. If you are looking for talent for your business, it is essential that you document the day-to-day role and clearly outline expectations for success at those 30, 60, and 90-day marks. Michael, have you read the book, The First 90 Days?
I don't think I have.
I think it would be something you might enjoy. It's written from the standpoint of new leaders coming into an organization and figuring out what they should do for the first 30, 60, and 90 days of their employment. I looked at it more from when I come into a group to consult for them, normally what I do is just come in and say, fire everybody and start over. This book made me think about it a lot differently. Who are my allies? Who are my champions? Who's on my
Yep.
side? Who do I have to win over? And then how will I build the case for the things that I believe I need to do using historical or legacy or succession planning information that only these people that I'm alienating when I walk in the room by saying fire everyone, that information would never come to me before. Now I come in a lot more gently. And I think it'd be a very interesting read for anybody that's considering bringing someone new into their organization.
Nice. And the one that I will recommend is, this book made a profound impact, was Making Money is Killing Your Business by Chuck Blakeman. Talks about the 7 stages of business. And that's actually the book I read that started me on the process of getting out of the day-to-day of the MSP. And he says, make a 5-year plan on how to do it. I actually did it, and that month vacation was at the 5-year mark, and it gave me the freedom to be able to start this business.
Aren't goals amazing? Thanks for sharing your story with us today, Michael. I really appreciate your time. There'll be some information in the show notes for anybody that wants to get in touch with Michael and learn more about Scaled and how they can augment their IT team working with competent.
Hardworking, enthusiastic, and very enjoyable.
If you're looking for excellent employees with insane work ethics to augment your technology team right now, you should get in touch with Michael.
Gary, really appreciate you having me on.
Always a pleasure to chat. I'm glad we got the opportunity. Have a great afternoon, Michael.
Thanks, you too.
You've been listening to Win with Richardson and Richardson. What's important now? We're so glad you've joined us and know you're one step closer to winning big in your business too. We'd love to connect with you outside of the show. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to connect@rnr.consulting. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so you'll easily know when new episodes are available. Until next time, you can win, and we're here to help.